We gather in community that exists only because we choose to be present with one another. We come together with greetings made sacred over miles and through screens by the feelings we bring to them. We gather as whole people, wounded and triumphant, afraid, joyful, caring, or confused. We gather in love and listening. Come, bring your loving heart and open yourself to the holiness here.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Congregation of Westchester and our online worship service. My name is Sarah Hyson and I'm a lay leader in this congregation. I especially want to welcome any visitors to our online service this morning. We hope we will have a chance to get to know you. You can say hello in the comments, or if you would like to be in touch directly, the email address to contact us is welcome@ucwc.org. We hope that you will join us for our online social hour. The link and password are in connections, and we'll put them in the comments for this service and on screen at the end of the service. Unitarian Universalism holds that great good comes from wide diversity. So whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your heritage and from wherever your beliefs spring, we are pleased that you are here. Let us walk a while together. As a reminder, please check connections in our online calendar for announcements and information on how to access our various online events. We have a few announcements to highlight this morning. Join us for Explorations, a program for beginning and deepening UU journeys. This small group style program is a great way for newer to UU folks, as well as UU veterans, to explore their spiritual paths through guided readings and topical questions. Engage in self and group discovery and growth, and get to know one another better through the course of the different sessions. The second session is coming Monday, October 19th, and focuses on our 7 principles. See the Fellowtarian and Connections for more information and to RSVP. All are welcome. In addition, Reverend Dan will be teaching his UU Histories and Theologies class on Zoom on Monday, October 26th at 6:30. The link will be in connections. You can email minister@ucwc.org for more information. And Reverend Dan has some additional announcements.
Thank you, Sarah. The first additional announcement I have is just to thank everybody involved in the auction this year. It was a very weird experience trying to do an auction online, and it was kind of a risk to give something like that a try. If you were with us last night, you know how much fun we had as a group and how warm a feeling it was. And it was like a balm. I never thought I'd say this about an auction, but it was a balm to the soul. It really was, to be together and just to let our hair down and not talk about politics for a couple hours. It was a great experience. There are a lot of people to thank for the auction, both last night and the silent auction that we've been having. There are also a few silent auction items still available, so you can still look at the silent auction lists and see if there's a bargain that you want to pick up. But I want to thank Ed Cole and Nancy Artis and Janine Galen and Steve Sander and all of the bake sale folks. If I start listing all of those folks, I'm going to miss a few, so I won't. But I just want to thank everybody. We exceeded, I believe, preliminary reports are that although we didn't, get quite as much as we would have in a normal year, we did significantly exceed what we expected to get this year. And it's very warming and reassuring to see that. So thank you to everybody involved. It's deeply appreciated. The second thing I want to mention is completely different. 2 weeks from now is All Souls Sunday, November 1st. It actually takes place on All Souls Day this year. Normally for the All Souls service, members bring photographs or mementos of ancestors or loved ones who have died and place them on our altar in the sanctuary. This year, I'm asking that you send those electronically, and we'll put them together in a virtual altar for our service. It doesn't need to be fancy. If all you have is an old snapshot, you can use your phone and just take a picture of the picture and send it to me. It doesn't need to be fancy. If you have a memento, you can take a picture of that and send it. I know this is an extra step, but I hope that you'll be willing. It will make the service more special. In order to make this work, we need the photos by this Sunday. Thus far, I've received 2 photos, so I'm hoping that we'll hear from more people over the course of this week, and thank you for those who have sent in photos. We can have meaningful rituals online, so thank you for being part of it. So please, again, this week, do remember to send in your pictures so that we can have this part of the service and honor those who came before and those we have lost. Thank you.
Today's chalice lighting words are some of my own. Heed the storytellers. It is through stories that we form connections, through connections that we bring about understanding, and through understanding that we nourish love. So heed the storytellers and share with them yours. For stories breathe within us all, and therein waits the path to love. From wherever you are, please join together in singing hymn number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every craving kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
I invite you to join me wherever you are in our unison affirmation. We gather, aspiring to be a thriving, caring, and welcoming community that supports each person's spiritual journey, embraces diversity, challenges us to live responsibly, and is a catalyst for a just and compassionate world. And I believe our religious educator, Cassie Langle, has a story prepared for us, or Time for All Ages. Welcome.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Now is the time in our service where we invite our children and youth to join those who have gathered here together for a very special Time for All Ages message. And as always, we are going to begin with a nice, deep breath together as we settle more comfortably in and we open our hearts and our ears to what we need to hear today. Ready? Okay. So, an important theme in today's service is listening to one another. We've been hearing this message for years from teachers, parents, co-workers, and other important people in society. But it is one thing to hear them, it is another thing entirely to listen. Let's try a story to see if we can tell the difference. This is called a cricket story. Once, two friends were walking down the sidewalk of a busy street during rush hour. There was all sorts of noise in this city, car horns honking, feet shuffling, people talking. And amid all this noise, one of the friends turns to the other and said, "I hear a cricket." "No way," her friend responded. "How could you possibly hear a cricket with all of this noise? You must be imagining it. Besides, I've never seen a cricket in the city." "No, really, I do hear a cricket. I'll show you." She stopped for a moment, listened, then led her friend across the street to a big cement planter with a tree in it. Pushing back some leaves, she showed her friend a small brown cricket. "That's amazing," her friend said. "You must have superhuman hearing. What's your secret?" "No, my hearing is just the same as yours. There's no secret," the first woman replied. "Watch, I'll show you." She reached into her pocket, pulled out some loose change, and she threw it on the sidewalk. Amid all the noise of the city, everyone within 30 feet turned their head to see where the sound of money was coming from. "See," she said, "it's all a matter of what you are listening for." It is so important what we are listening for and how we listen to one another. When the people in our lives ask us to listen, we should open not just our ears, but our hearts and our minds as well. We should listen to one another without thinking ahead to what we're going to reply with, or passing a judgment on what they're saying, trying to interject our own opinions. When we listen deeply like this, we hear not only the words people are saying, but the feelings behind them. This is just as important when we're listening to a friend or a family member, as it is someone we don't know as closely, like a politician or a scientist. And also, someone who may believe differently or have a different experience than we do, maybe because of the color of their skin, or the people they've loved, or the struggles they've faced. When we listen deeply, we might understand things with our hearts that we don't hear with our ears, while our minds are so quick to judge or move on or reply. When we understand things with our hearts, it is so much easier to trust and believe in one another.
Thank you, Cassie. Once a month, we share our offering with a different cause or organization in the community. Today, we're sharing with Act in Faith, which provides emergency assistance for residents of Greater Westchester. Act in Faith was founded by the local congregations, including us, through the Westchester Spiritual and Religious Council. It was a way that we could pool our resources and we could give real help to the people who would come to our doors or who had a sudden need. There are all kinds of organizations that provide long-term kinds of assistance, but Act in Faith can help with bills that are due right now. They keep people in their homes. They cover emergencies that bigger agencies aren't set up to handle. And if they are not able to do something, they will work with people to find someone who can. Last winter, when one of our members said that she had some extra funds and she wanted to give them to a worthy organization, she asked where in Westchester I thought might make the most difference for people suffering because of the pandemic. I suggested Act in Faith. This is immediate assistance. They are our project along with other local congregations, and they have been well used these last several months. So today, as we give both to our congregation and to Act in Faith, I hope that we will be as generous as we're able. You can give through our webpage, you can write a check, you can give through PayPal. If you give through a check or PayPal, please write a note to indicate whether and how you would like your donation divided. If we don't receive a note for your PayPal donation, we'll just treat it as cash and divide it evenly. Thank you for all of your generosity. We will now receive our morning offering. For these gifts and for everything that we give in many ways to all of our communities, we are truly grateful. We have 3 readings today. The first is by my colleague Leslie Takahashi. She writes, "Listening is not an act of the ear. Listening is an act of the heart. In these times when so much speaks, outrage, anger, disillusionment, rage is a constant cry. Derision has found his voice. The despair of the fair and faithful speaks fast and often. The whisper of despair grows into a keening lament. Open our hearts to the real fears of those who have known hate, because they are our guides to its insidious expansiveness. Open our memories to those ancestors of our spirits who were love seekers, peacemakers, truth guiders, system questioners. and listen, because listening is an act of our hearts. Do not ignore the soul pain of the ones who move through the hardest nights, who face the denial of their rights and the desecration of their humanity. Do not forget those too dispossessed of a language of mastery and the countless forms of life who do not count humanity as their family and yet who are within our larger circle of interdependence. Open our hearts to the true threats that many feel. Open our minds to the anguish of those who need accompaniment. Open our memories to those who came before us and taught us how to create new forms of love out of the old, worn patterns. And listen, because listening is an act of our hearts. Listening is an act of our hearts. Our second reading is by Elandria Williams. Elandria Williams was a young Unitarian Universalist leader and a recent co-moderator of the Unitarian Universalist Association. I actually think she might have been the youngest moderator of the Unitarian Universalist Association in our history. And she died very suddenly last month. In her memory and honoring her legacy, we have this reading. We are worthy not because of what we produce, but because of who we are. We are divine bodies of light and darkness. You are not worthy because of what you offer, not because of what is in your mind, not for the support that you give others, not for what you give at all. We are worthy and are whole just because. In this great turning, in this great pandemic, in this radical readjustment and alignment, we are not disposable. We are needed. We are the very people that have withstood everything that has been thrown at us as a people. And as Maya Angelou would say, still I rise. We arise from the pain. We rise from the grief. We arise from the limits people place on us and the limits we place on ourselves. We rise to be the children and the ancestors. We rise to be our true selves in relationship to our families and our communities. Recognizing our liberating and whole selves, honoring them and others as we strive for abundant communities, abundant lives, abundant relationships, and abundant values and cultural manifestations. We are worthiness personified. I, you, and we are worthy and deserve a life where we are not always fighting for our existence. Imagine what we could create if we were not always in the struggle. Imagine what we could envision if we could just be let to just go there, so tired of always having to resist, to fight, demanding, pushing. To everyone that has the courage, the power, the ability to co-create what we want and need while rooting in what we can't lose and who we are, you are the visionary. You are the hope. You are our ancestors' dreams. No, you might not ever end up on some list somewhere, but you are on a list in someone's heart and mind. And if it's in how you move in the world so people can see by example, you are the embodiment of what we need. Thanks to all who that are the embodiment not of productivity, but the embodiment of radical love, care, and sanctuary. It's time, embodiment time, embodiment, living one's values out loud. Let me every day live my values out loud. Let us every day live our values out loud. embodying our values, not the productivity quotient, beyond productivity, past productivity, true embodiment, life. And our final reading is written by André Moll. It's A Blessing, which was written originally in honor of two Unitarians, Martha and Waitstill Sharp, who during World War II dared to risk their own comfort in order to help save the lives of those in desperate need. As we gather together, may we remember, when you share with me what is most important to you, that is where listening begins. When I show you that I hear you, when I say your life matters, that is where compassion begins. When I open the door to greet you, that is where hospitality begins. When I venture out to bring you to shelter, that is where love begins. When I risk my comfort to ease your suffering, when I act against hatred, violence, and injustice, that is where courage begins. When we experience the full presence of each other because of our shared humanity, because of our differences, that is where holy gratitude begins. May this space be a table that is not complete until all are welcome. May this table be a space of beauty where together we create a series of miracles and where all that we share is sacred. May it be so. Well, our second hymn today is called How Could Anyone? And it's very brief, so we're just going to sing it. I'm going to sing it through once, and then I'll teach it to you, and then we'll sing it together a couple of times. Even though we might not be able to hear each other singing, we know that we are still singing together and listening together. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. So we'll sing this together. I'll feed you the words as we go. And as we sing, you might think about, as we sing, you might think about who you would sing this song to. Or maybe you might just look into a mirror and sing this song to yourself. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? Here we go. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone, how could anyone ever tell you less than beautiful you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone, how could anyone ever tell you less than whole you were less than whole? Fail to notice, how could anyone fail to loving is a miracle, that your loving is a miracle. How deeply you're connected to my soul. One last time, how could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. After that wonderful lyric, it seems wrong to begin a sermon by talking about the Center for Disease Control. And it's not about what you think. A few years ago, the CDC started banning words in their official documents. Terms like fetus, transgender, science-based disappeared from the government website. It was one way to make people and ideas invisible. Like a lot of others, I posted about this on social media, and shortly afterwards, I received a note from a friend. I am one of those words, my friend said. I'm transgender. It feels odd coming out in my late 40s, but someone I admire came out in her 70s, and if she can do it, so can I. My friend and I wrote back and forth long into the evening, talking about what he was going through, how supportive his mom and most of his friends had been, the difficult time his boyfriend was having. We talked about his pronouns, and he told me his chosen name, which was taken from a favorite book and symbolized a place where anyone who needed shelter, comfort, and community without judgment could find it. It was a perfect fit for him, and I told him so. He typed back, I have no idea what the emoji for beaming with happiness is, but that's what I'm doing right now. Love begins when we listen and when we believe. I thought about that conversation last week on National Coming Out Day. I thought about how difficult it is to uncover the deepest experience of your life, to claim your identity and name yourself, knowing that there are some who will not accept it and who will not respect it. It can't possibly be true, they might say. Or maybe they'll say in one way or another that biology is destiny. Maybe they'll treat it as a phase, or they'll see it as a betrayal or as a ruse. Maybe they'll perceive you as a danger. Maybe they'll refuse even the basic common courtesy of using your chosen name or pronoun. It's hard to share something that important about yourself when you know the harm and ignorance you could face. A couple of weeks ago, I reconnected with an old friend from high school. She and I were different in a lot of ways. She smoked. I thought it was a disgusting habit. She was grounded a lot. I was kind of a do-gooder kid, even if I did neglect my homework. She was blunt and in your face, yet still somehow shy. I was talkative and outgoing. She was a writer and thinker and people watcher. We went to some concerts together. We were just friends. And it was halfway through one of those shows that she realized she couldn't deny her sexual orientation to herself any longer. She told me a few weeks later she was a lesbian and her first crush was the performer we had just seen. The next weekend, the two of us took the metro to Lambda Rising, a gay bookstore in Washington, D.C.'s DuPont Circle neighborhood, where we found flyers for a youth support group called the Sexual Minority Youth Assistance League, SMYAL, which spells out smile if you're not very good at spelling. It took a while for her to convince her parents to let her go. They weren't too pleased with this development. And when they finally did give their permission, they warned her, don't get into any sexual relationships with any gay men. And we had fun counting the things wrong with that sentence. But Smile changed her life because it was absolute acceptance within a group of peers. There was no judgment, no derision, no pressure. She could just be and be heard. And through those meetings, she began to uncover herself. Love begins when we listen and when we believe. I first found that kind of acceptance in the youth group at Unitarian Universalist youth conferences. I don't remember anyone teaching us to listen and believe one another in so many words. It was just a common understanding born of the upbringing that we all shared. Those youth groups understood that everyone speaks the truth of their own experiences, and all of our experiences are different, so we need to listen to each other's truths. It's as simple as that. We need to pay attention to each other because who we are matters more than who others tell us we should be. Love begins when we listen and when we believe. It's as easy as anything, but it's also harder than it sounds. I can think of countless times when I haven't listened enough. I can think of times this week when I haven't listened enough. I can think of times when my own narrative going around and around in my head was more important to me than somebody else's truth. I can think of way too many missed opportunities. And I know that there are some that passed by without me ever even realizing it. And our society does its best sometimes to keep those kinds of truths from coming out, especially if they upset cultural norms or power structures, or if they appear to threaten a cause for which good people have labored. So we find all kinds of ways to deflect. Whenever we hear the term all lives matter or blue lives matter in response to the phrase Black Lives Matter, that's deflecting. It's not that those statements aren't true. They're obviously true, but it's a total red herring. Nobody has said that police lives don't matter. And the evidence is that society values the lives of police officers extremely highly. Nobody said that Black lives matter more than any other lives. Instead, those kinds of responses are ways of avoiding having to face an uncomfortable truth and of placing one's own comfort ahead of the lived experiences of others. It's an understandable response in an uncomfortable situation, but it is a habit we need to overcome because it does a great deal of harm. I think nobody understands that kind of harm better than survivors of sexual harassment and assault. There's a culture of silence and denial and deflection even now, and the cost of that culture is high. I've seen liberals do it and conservatives. I've seen Unitarian Universalists do it just as much as I've seen members of any other faith. A beloved or respected figure is accused of sexual misconduct. People who admire that figure find it hard to believe something that seems so incongruous on the surface of it, particularly if such actions seem at odds with the figure's public statements, positions, or actions. So the whistleblowers, often the survivors, find themselves ignored, blamed, or accused of ulterior motives. Very often, people who are quick to condemn public figures they dislike who face these kinds of allegations respond very differently when the accusation is about someone they admire. But when we don't listen, when we shove it all under the rug because it's inconvenient or hard to hear, it cuts off both the survivors and the community's ability to heal. Even when the perpetrator goes away or is forced away, silence becomes a form of acquiescence. And that dynamic further victimizes all survivors and empowers all abusers because it demonstrates the truth of that threatening statement, "Nobody will believe you." And it sets a high cost for telling the truth. And while of course some sexual misconduct is worse than others, minimizing, ignoring, or denying any sexual misconduct empowers all abusers. I don't want anyone to be afraid to come to me and share their true experience because I wasn't willing to face a possibility that made me uncomfortable. I don't want anyone to be afraid to come to me with their truth because they couldn't trust me to listen and honor their story, whether it's about abuse, racism, sexism, gender identity, sexual orientation, something they experienced, something I said wrong, or anything else. Your need to speak the truth is more important than my need to be comfortable with what you have to say. I won't pretend that I always get it right. People often don't. And not every moment is the appropriate one for that kind of sharing. And it's important to remember that rumor is not the same thing as authentic experience. And not everyone experiences the same situation in the same way. Yes, but when someone tells their own story, in the absence of a compelling reason otherwise, they have a right to belief. So I try my hardest to listen. And when I find the defenses rising within me because it is uncomfortable, or maybe it is about a mistake I made, or it's about someone I admire, I remind myself to turn back to love. And I remind myself that love begins when we listen and when we believe. I think it's hardest to practice that kind of love when what people have to share is something about us. I mean, that's when we really get defensive, isn't it? Especially if, from our point of view, we didn't do anything wrong. But if another person is willing to come to us and put themselves out there in that way, even if they're angry or upset at us, they've taken a step toward healing the relationship. When we listen to them, we take another step. Maybe we didn't see things in quite the same way. Maybe something that seemed absolutely fine from our point of view felt hurtful from theirs. Maybe we just hit a raw nerve, or we legitimately screwed up and would never know if we weren't willing to hear their experiences. Love begins when we listen to each other and when we believe one another. It's a spiritual practice. Sometimes when it does involve stepping out from our place of comfort, it is very much a spiritual sacrifice. We let go of ourselves enough to turn toward others and give them love as they are, where they are. You might think of it as honoring the inherent worth and dignity of every person, or as acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth, or even a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. But to me, It's simply part of living a Unitarian Universalist life. And sure, it isn't easy. The simplest things are often the hardest, but the rewards are so many. We grow and deepen from each other's experiences. We understand ourselves better. We understand the world better. We become motivated to make the world better. And if nothing else, a person has had the chance to be seen and heard and believed. If you have ever been that person, you know what a powerful and life-changing experience that can be. It touches the holiness within ourselves and the holiness of the authentic human condition. Rejoice in that holiness. It is one of the greatest blessings of life. Love begins when we listen and believe. One of the ways in this congregation that we listen to each other is by sharing the joys and sorrows and milestones of our lives. So as we move into that time in our service, I invite you to sing, "There is a Love Holding Me."
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding me. I rest in this love.
Sorry. Good morning. My name is Sheila Grant, and I am a member of the pastoral care team and the contact person for the month of October. I will be reading the cards of sharing. From a member, a joy, I found out a friend of mine has survived a severe case of COVID. From two members, a joy. Our daughter's surgery was a success, and she is now home recuperating. We thank you for your emails, texts, cards, thoughts, prayers, and food. Your love and caring is appreciated. From a member, a concern. For my friend who recently learned her cancer has returned, sending hopeful thoughts of healing. And as always, we light a candle for all those unexpressed joys and sorrows that we hold in our hearts. Thank you.
Please sing, "There is a Love Holding Us."
There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding us. We rest in this love.
Together we enter the sacred space which is known by many names, and among these is prayer, and among these is meditation, beginning with a few moments in the community of quietness. Spirit of love, we hold one another in sacred trust, listening, believing, caring, giving our presence to each other. In the coming together of souls, we find hope and holiness. Embracing the wonder of such moments and the grace of connection, we give thanks, and we give ourselves anew to one another, to all of humanity, and to this world. We are blessed in the receiving, blessed in the giving. We are truly blessed. Amen, and blessed be. Our closing hymn today was written by the Unitarian Universalist songwriter Carolyn McDade. It's called Come Sing a Song With Me, and she said that she used to have mixed feelings about this song. She thought maybe it was too corny, come sing a song with me, that Carolyn doesn't do corny. But then she performed a concert in a prison, and when she sang this song, she said, the inmates began singing with her, more loudly than on any other song, with tears streaming down their cheeks. And Carolyn said, from that moment, she never again discounted the importance of bringing hope when hope is hard to find. Come, sing this song with me.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know you're mine. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
We close with words from Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Go in peace. Right. So, yeah. But like when I lift my hand right now, okay, the large version of me, what I'm looking at primarily, is just fine. But the version up top that reflects what's going out to people is half a second off. That's fine, but as I say, whatever you were doing, like just right then, was fine. It was just during the service, it was the other way around. But whatever works. That's inter- that's interesting. See, during the prayer, I was spot on, and the version going out was just in up in the little corner. During the sermon, though, it was the other way around. The version going out was the big screen, and the okay. That's the all I. It's just as I say. That's just easier for me to because I've sort of gotten used to sort of talking to the mirror. And